Drew Scott, the 47-year-old Property Brothers actor, is now coming forward to confirm the long-running rumors. With unforeseen changes in his personal life, health issues, and sudden pauses in production, Drew's path hasn't been as perfect as it seems on TV. So what has really been going on behind the scenes? Why is Drew voicing his opinion now? Join us as we take a closer look at the man behind the camera and expose the truth that lies behind the news. Humble beginnings in Vancouver. In 1978, Drew Scott and his identical twin brother Jonathan were born in Vancouver, Canada, marking the beginning of their story. From the start, their lives were entwined. They were more than just brothers. They collaborated like closest friends and teammates in all they did. As twins, they shared many of the same challenges, goals, and experiences, in addition to sharing the same birthdate. Their parents, Jim and Joan Scott, had a big impact on who they were. Jim, their father, had a fascinating past that affected the sons more than anyone could have imagined. Prior to settling into a more relaxed existence, Jim worked as a stuntman and actor in the film industry. This suggested that there was always something entertaining going on at home. The boys grew up hearing tales from movie sets and seeing their father perform. The seeds of creativity and performance had already been planted in Drew and Jonathan, even if Jim eventually left that setting to focus on his family. Jim not only motivated them with his acting background but also instilled in them the importance of perseverance, self-reliance, and creating their own destiny. From a young age, he pushed the twins to think like business owners. Dealing with him was challenging. Instead, he encouraged kids to take responsibility, complete real-world tasks, and recognize the value of money. At 7 years old, the lads were already thinking about ways to get money. At the age of 8, Drew and Jonathan started their first business. They manufactured and sold nylon-wrapped wire hangers, going door to door in their neighborhood in quest of customers. The product was simple, even though they invented it themselves. Making and selling the hangers required a lot of time and work. One customer's efforts paid off when they placed a large order. That was an important occasion for the boys. It was the first taste of business success they had experienced. This event gave them more than just more money, it stoked their passion. They realized that with enough creativity and effort, they could make anything. It was the beginning of a journey that would eventually grow into something far larger. Performance was Drew Scott's first passion, even if real estate would later become his life's work. When they were teenagers, Drew and Jonathan were both interested in performing and providing entertainment. Given that they are the children of a former actor and stuntman, it is not surprising that they were born on stage. They participated in both school theater and local productions. Drew loved playing different roles and acting in front of an audience, but they weren't actors for fun. They also devised creative ways to make money off of it. One of the most interesting and unusual ways they achieved this was through their training as party clowns. Yes, Drew and Jonathan performed as clowns at parties to amuse kids and earn money at the same time. They became adept at juggling, making balloon creatures, and joking. Despite its comical tone, it taught students valuable life lessons about confidence, relationships, and fast thinking. Drew gained the self-assurance he needed to perform in front of sizable audiences from these early appearances, which would help him on television much later in his career. Even as his enthusiasm for performance increased, Drew recognized the importance of education. He made the decision to take a break from acting in order to focus on his studies. Like Jonathan, he enrolled at the University of Calgary. It was an important step that showed Drew's dedication to creating a strong foundation for his future. He continued to have a creative mindset while attending school. Even though he continued to perform whenever he could, he was now starting to think about how he could earn a living and ensure his future. And as it turned out, all of these experiences, from business and acting to conquering challenges, would eventually come together in a surprising way that would change his life forever. We'll go into detail about how Drew got his start in the real estate business right out of college, so stay tuned. He had no idea it would make him famous on television. The change in Vancouver. They had no choice but to begin their first real estate venture. Drew and Jonathan rented a rundown house near the university. Beyond simply residing there, they had a bigger idea. They decided to fix it and rent it out to other students. It was their first time refurbishing a property to earn money. It was a challenging assignment. They were still enrolled full-time, after all, but the outcome was valuable. They ended up making money from the rental. Even more importantly, they found they had a talent for real estate. That first flip sparked something within of them. Soon after, Drew and Jonathan began looking for more houses to renovate and sell. Gradually, they acquired experience. They learned how to make changes to homes that would raise their worth, how to discover a good deal, and how to create a budget. They quickly came to understand that real estate was more than a side gig. It was turning into a legitimate business. However, the path wasn't always simple. In their early dealings, the brothers often had to deal with real estate agents. Unfortunately, we were disappointed by some of these meetings. Drew felt that some of the agents were not as thoughtful or honest as he had expected. As a result, he took a big decision. If they wanted to stay in the real estate business, they needed total control. As a result, Drew worked hard in school and earned his real estate license. This gave him the ability to independently oversee each stage of the process and control their transactions. By 2006, the brothers had decided to formally begin dating. They founded Scott Real Estate, their own company. Simply put, the goal was to buy, fix, and sell homes. But real estate was still a backup plan for Drew. Acting and entertainment continued to be his passions. After helping to start the company, he felt it was time to go after his true ambition again. Drew gave Jonathan the majority of the responsibilities and then went back to Vancouver to continue his acting career. Returning to Vancouver was an exciting moment for Drew. He now had the chance to devote himself to his biggest love. He began attending industry events to broaden his network and enrolled in acting classes to refine his skills in front of the camera. He wanted to meet casting directors, producers, and anyone else who could help him land a big role. His entire focus was on becoming a successful actor. But following your aspirations isn't always easy. Despite his talent and perseverance, Drew wasn't getting the results he was hoping for. In the very competitive entertainment sector, roles were hard to come by. Acting classes and living expenses were also mounting. Drew began to accrue debt since he had no steady source of income. It was a challenging time. He had taken a risk by quitting the real estate business, and now he was struggling to make ends meet. In light of this, Drew knew he had to take sensible action. He didn't want to stop performing, but he couldn't ignore the financial hardship. So he made a choice that would change everything. He brought Scott Real Estate to Vancouver. He was able to make money by opening a second branch of the company in his new location while still working on real estate, which he already knew how to do well. Drew had to make a fresh start and put in a lot of effort in Vancouver. He had to find properties, recruit clients, and put together a team. But it worked. After a while, Drew found equilibrium, and the new branch thrived. He was now doing real estate transactions during the day and going to acting classes or auditions whenever he could. It wasn't easy, but it gave him stability and a chance to keep working toward his creative goals. Drew kept working toward his objectives. He changed and adjusted. And carried on, combining his zeal with sensible choices. And that combination of abilities would soon present the opportunity of a lifetime. You'd better stay here. Next, we'll examine how Property Brothers' success followed an unsuccessful idea for a reality show. The beginning of Property Brothers. That enormous opportunity started to take shape as a television show concept. Drew and Jonathan began to think more carefully about how to share their story to a larger audience as they continued to renovate homes and grow their business. Attempting to present a presentation that would integrate their growing expertise in entertainment and real estate made sense. The notion they made their first major pitch for was Realtor Idol. Although real estate brokers would compete in different activities in place of singers, it was partly modeled after popular talent competition shows like American Idol. It was a new idea, but producers weren't really convinced. Since the format didn't seem to capture the emotional aspect of home improvement and acquisition that viewers frequently identify with, the concept was passed on. Then another thought sprang to mind. This one is called My Dream Home. It had a more personal and genuine perspective. On a limited budget and time, the show would follow a real estate agent who assists families in finding and remodeling their dream homes. This version seems more relevant and relatable. It was decided to have Drew as its host. It was also originally planned to pair him with a female co-host. However, as events unfolded, Drew devised a more effective strategy. He presented the producers with his identical twin brother, Jonathan. In addition to being family, he was a skilled contractor with years of experience in restoration. He explained that the two had been collaborating for years and had a great friendship. Not only were they close, but they also had the perfect combination of skills. Jonathan with design and construction, and Jonathan with real estate and negotiations. The idea was great, according to the producers. It was unlike anything that had ever existed. The twin brothers are working together to help families transform their houses into the homes of their dreams. It added a lighthearted and unique energy to the presentation. The fact that they were both seasoned experts in their fields further supported the concept. The performance subsequently underwent another format adjustment, and this time it was successful. When the title was changed to Property Brothers, the vision became clear. Typically a fixer-upper, Jonathan would supervise the remodeling to make it their own, while Drew would help families discover the perfect home within their budget. Together, they would produce an amazing final house and a once-in-a-lifetime adventure. The first season of Property Brothers, which aired on HGTV in 2011, was well received by audiences. The show wasn't just about real estate or renovating, it was about real families, real challenges, and real transformations. The audience was shown the emotional highs and lows of the home buying process. They watched as budgets were tested, construction schedules were constrained, and plans had to be adjusted. Every episode ended with that big, amazing reveal, of course. The moment a family walked inside their new dream home. Drew was a key player. He helped each family understand what they could afford, negotiated the best pricing, and showed them residences that met their needs. Jonathan took over after that, directing the renovation with his practical expertise and aesthetic taste. The performance had a genuine, unstaged feel because of their cooperation and natural banter. That chemistry was one of the main things that drew viewers in for each new episode. Property Brothers' emotional plot, realistic information, and striking imagery made it an instant hit. As a result, the Scott brothers gained fame. This established the groundwork for the ultimate growth of a complete media empire. They were more than just real estate brokers and television hosts. They were entertainers, industry leaders, and established brands. Viewers started to notice something unusual in 2019, Drew's health crisis. Drew's appearances on the show had become less frequent. He appeared less frequently in certain episodes and not at all in others. Fans started to speculate. Was there a bond between Drew and his brother Jonathan? Was there a disagreement that caused tension on the set? Had Drew decided he was leaving the program for good? After a while, Drew decided it was time to answer the increasing volume of questions. In a heartfelt public statement, Drew spoke the truth. He had been battling serious health issues for almost a year. His limited appearance on the show was not related to family issues. The real cause was much more personal and grave. Drew explained that he had started experiencing strange symptoms that didn't seem to be related. At first, it felt like the flu, but instead of getting better, things got worse over time. He suffered from flu-like symptoms, including intense exhaustion, body aches, and excessive weariness. He gradually started having digestive issues. It was also very difficult for him to work in a studio or on outdoor restorations because of his extreme heat sensitivity. He knew something was wrong, but no one could tell him why. Despite seeing several doctors and going through a lot of testing, there were no conclusive answers for a long time. Maybe that was the most bothersome thing. Oblivious to what was happening inside his body. Without a diagnosis, it was difficult to choose the best course of action, and the uncertainty further exacerbated his physical suffering. After months of testing, doctors identified mercury poisoning as a possible cause. His potential for chronic fatigue syndrome, which is typified by intense, ongoing exhaustion that doesn't go away with rest, was another concern. These ailments explained a lot of Drew's symptoms, but there was still no easy fix. In addition to his physical issues, Drew was also experiencing emotional ones. For someone who had always been vivacious and enthusiastic, having to relax was really difficult. He couldn't film the way he wanted to. He couldn't make it to every show. He felt like he was letting people down, even though he had nothing to do with it. Initially, Drew kept the majority of his issues to himself, but he quickly realized that remaining silent was not helping him or anyone else going through a similar circumstance. Then he came out. To connect what he was going through, he shared open updates on social media about his symptoms, treatments, and emotional highs and lows. Fan support was amazing. Numerous people had also had invisible or mysterious illnesses, and knew how annoying it was to be sick for no apparent cause. Drew's honesty and bravery simply moved others. By making his health battle public, Drew made it possible for others to talk about their own struggles without feeling ashamed. His articles often talked of his loneliness and fear, the toll it took on his mental health, and how his close friends and family helped him cope. He discussed how frustrating it was to not control his body and how important it was to raise issues when they come up. Throughout this difficult time, Drew became a fervent supporter of invisible illnesses, diseases that are painful and genuine but may not be immediately noticeable on the outside. He reminded his followers that we can never truly know what another person is going through and that kindness and patience may go a long way. After months of rest, therapy, and professional help, Drew's health finally began to improve. As his body slowly regained its vigor, the worst symptoms began to fade. It took him some time to get better. He was determined to accomplish what he loved once more, despite the time it required. With the assistance of medical experts and appropriate health management, Drew fully recovered. Finally, he could go back to filming Property Brothers and other shows of a similar nature. Fans were thrilled to see him laughing and smiling as previously as he made a reappearance on screen. His return to television was more than just a personal victory. It was an instance that showed viewers the power of tenacity. Drew persevered despite the challenges of the past year. Through all of the pain, he remained hopeful and came back stronger. Since his return, Drew has been offering wellness tips to his supporters. He emphasizes the importance of regular checkups, listening to your body, and not being afraid to slow down when needed. Supporters see him as more than just a real estate expert and TV personality. On a deeper level, they might identify with him and admire him. He also gave credit to his brother Jonathan, who replaced Drew. One of the main features of Property Brothers had always been their relationship, which now seemed to be even closer. The health problems served as a reminder to them and their supporters of the importance of supporting one another during trying times. Linda Fan. Outside of the spotlight, Drew Scott is a devoted husband and father in addition to being one half of the Property Brothers. His love and familial experiences have been just as important as his television work. And like everything else, Drew has addressed this part of life with heart, care, and compassion. Drew went to Los Angeles in 2010 to meet his future wife, Linda Fan. He was in Los Angeles at the time, while Linda was working at the Toronto Fashion Week event. When they met at a pub during the event, they clicked right away. They were both extremely passionate about travel, adventure, and creativity. And the conversation came easily. In addition to Linda's beauty, Drew was impressed by her independence and sense of humor. Her disregard for popularity and renown was refreshing for someone like Drew, who was starting to get attention from his work in movies and real estate. Linda, who works as a creative director and venture funder, didn't want to be famous herself. That balance between them was one of the reasons their relationship worked. As their relationship grew, Linda quickly began helping out backstage at Scott Brothers Entertainment. Their production company benefited greatly from her artistic background, and she added her design, marketing, and brand building expertise to a number of their projects. Drew dated Linda for 8 years prior to their marriage. They moved slowly, building a strong relationship built on communication, support, and shared values. Throughout those years, Linda became increasingly involved in Drew's life, helping with business-related duties and going on shoots with him. The couple remained grounded in private despite their increasing public profile. In 2016, while having supper at home, Drew proposed to Linda. Since it was genuine rather than pretentious, it was a perfect fit for their personality. In one of the most magnificent weddings in HGTV history, the couple married 2 years after fans were ecstatic to learn that they were engaged. They were married in front of friends and family at a beautiful venue in Italy in May 2018. It was a modest, joyous, and lovely ceremony. There were other events besides the wedding. They celebrated everything they had produced together over nearly a decade. As the ceremony was featured in the special TLC program, Drew and Linda Say I Do, fans were able to see a more personal side of their lives. By following them through the wedding planning process, poignant moments, and the ceremony itself, the documentary provided viewers with an intimate look into their love. Drew and Linda started a whole new path between the ages of 20 and 22, parenting. Their first child, a boy named Parker James Scott, was born in May of that year. The couple had been open about wanting children, so they were ecstatic when the time came. Social media was used to notify fans of Parker's arrival, and Drew opened out about the joys and challenges of fatherhood. Being a father changed Drew's life in a lot of ways. He talked about how his priorities shifted and how his family became the most significant part of his life. Despite his busy filming schedule, ongoing remodeling projects, and business commitments, Drew made it clear that his wife and son came first. Drew has also discussed the emotional toll that comes with being a parent. He regularly posts on social media about the little joys of being with Parker, such as changing his diapers, lullabying him, or just watching him grow. He has talked on how hard it is to combine work and family, how important it is to set boundaries, and how important it is to make time for worthwhile pursuits. Drew and Linda are more than just a love couple. They collaborate both personally and professionally. Linda would prefer to work in the background, even if Drew is often seen on television. However, that does not mean she is less active. She has influenced Scott Brothers Entertainment's creative approach and molded the company's brand over the years. Despite their fame, the couple is known for living a simple and realistic life. They enjoy tranquil evenings at home, family vacations, and time spent in nature. They focus on the important things and avoid the party culture of Hollywood. Their mutual values, their son, and one another. Drew Scott has confirmed the rumors. Recently, Drew and Jonathan Scott appeared together on Andy Cohen Live, a well-liked program hosted on SiriusXM. At first, it seemed like a typical discussion between friendly siblings, but it quickly took on an intriguing quality. At one point, host Andy Cohen asked a question that surprised both brothers. "If I looked into each of your bank accounts, would I see the same amount of money?" At first, Drew and Jonathan joked around to keep the conversation light. But when it became clearer, they found that the question resonated on a deeper level. What had started out as fun banter took a serious turn when Jonathan stopped and answered honestly. It was clear that this simple question would reveal more than the audience had expected. Jonathan was the first to break the humorous tone. He disclosed a shocking truth. In the early seasons of Property Brothers, he was on set 3 times as much as Drew. Even though Drew would make brief cameos at the start and finish of the program to introduce the project and wrap up the episode, Jonathan was consistent throughout the entire home restoration process. After 10 years of the same old routine, Jonathan felt obliged to speak up. One day, when they were filming, he asked Drew a thought-provoking question. "Maybe I ought to get 3 times your salary." That moment was telling. For fans, it was one of the clearest glimpses yet into the behind-the-scenes business of the hit show. Jonathan's question wasn't just a passing joke. It was honest and direct. It showed how his growing frustration about the imbalance had reached a point where he could no longer stay silent. Drew responded quickly and firmly. "You're never allowed to bring this up again, ever." His tone was lighthearted, but there was a distinct limit to what he said. "I was in charge of all the behind-the-scenes legal matters, including contracts and negotiations," Drew continued, explaining why. He believed that work had inherent value that was less evident but no less important. Drew's comments sounded forceful, but it was honest. He wasn't trying to minimize Jonathan's feelings. Instead, he was trying to show that there was a balance to their partnership that wasn't immediately seen on camera. Although Jonathan worked harder on the set, Drew handled the business side, coordinating with banks, legal teams, and networks to ensure the show's success. They didn't talk about anything emotive or dramatic that day. It was casual. Below it, however, the message was clear. This was not just a funny thing that happened. A real tension had developed from years of working together. Even with their lighthearted banter, fans could see how much they loved each other and how challenging it could be to share a creative career with a sister. People wondered why Drew didn't show up as frequently in scenes involving repairs for years. Some speculated that there might be conflict between the brothers. Others questioned if Drew's higher pay was a result of his role in deal talks or his greater popularity. Prior to the live discussion with Andy Cohen, the most of this was speculation. But when Jonathan came out, the brothers confirmed the accusations. Yes, there was a discrepancy in the amount of money and time spent filming. It wasn't just a normal part of the backstage work, either. They needed to discuss it as partners. What was special about the scenario was how they handled it. There was no secret drama, no public controversy. They gave a calm, sincere, and amusing response. They made no effort to skirt or distort the question. By acknowledging the burden without letting it ruin their relationship or mislead their audience, they showed maturity in that circumstance. They faced it head-on, proving that transparency and trust can persist even in long-standing partnerships. If you enjoyed this video, please press the bell button, like, and subscribe to make sure you don't miss any updates on your favorite celebs and their inspirational journeys.